right, so chapter 3, we're going to be working on your plan. This is the first kind of nuts and bolts. We've laid a lot of the groundwork. What is it? Why do I want to do it? Who gives a shit, right? So the first thing you want to decide is, where's your property going to be? Where do you want to own? Your first property very likely will be a 5 to maybe a 24 unit property, right? A 24 unit property, if you syndicate that property, you're going to make about $50 to maybe $70 a unit. Now, let's do some easy math. You have a 20 unit property, and you're going to make $40 per month per unit and money in your pocket. 20 units times 40, you're going to make $800. Don't let that throw you. Don't let that get you all screwed up. If it does, then don't do this. You have to start small. Banks are not going to let you start any larger. They're trying to protect you from you, and you're going to be reckless if you go much higher than a 20 to 40 units very often your first time, unless you have a very, very, very strong partner on board with you. My first property was literally 15 minutes away from my house. That might not work for you, but I would say try to keep it within a half hour if you can, an hour at the very outside, because at the beginning especially, you're going to have to be there quite often. So you don't want to burn yourself out, because if you can get through this first property, the second property is more lucrative, and then it really becomes lucrative at property 3, 4, and 5. If you're in a town that has 500 people, there's not going to be a whole lot of properties there to buy, first of all, and you're not going to have people wanting to move there. It's 500 people for a reason, probably. Nobody wants to be there. They're going to want to move out as soon as they graduate high school. There's not going to be anybody there. If your backyard is like that, you probably need to move, and that's a hard thing for a lot of people to come to grips with. If you're half the country away, you might get to that thing maybe every month, every 3 months, often twice a year. It's not a good idea. So you want people moving into your town every year. You want a place that's not really high in crime. You want a place that, a lot of things that you're going to look for, what I look for anyways, I'm looking for a tech industry, a vibrant tech industry or a startup industry, because that's going to draw in young people, and those young people very often in those industries are going to be very highly compensated. So you're looking for that as well. What I'm really looking for on that is I'm looking for 3 times the annual rent and salary, because that's the people that can afford to live in my property. Let's go $1,000 a month in rent. Multiply that by 12 for the year, right? So they're going to be paying in rent $12,000 a year. They need to make at least 3 times that rate to be able to comfortably afford that level of rent. So you need the median household income in that example to be at least $36,000 or above, so you want that also. Don't have a market, a submarket, a city that is too reliant on one employer or one industry. Think about, what happens if a government shutdown hits? Great people, great jobs, but if the government shuts down, how are they going to pay their rent, right? So if you have a town with 100,000 people, but 25,000 of those people work for the one employer in town, the big employer in town, if that employer decides to go overseas, if they go bankrupt, whatever, how are these people going to pay their rent? So don't be overly reliant there either. So we've talked about the asset itself. Where do you want to buy? What kind of property do you want to buy? All that, but almost where you have to start, how much money do you think you can raise? Have you been working on building a database of people that have expressed interest, that know, like, and trust you, that are willing to invest in your deals when you find them? Okay, so let's say you've been doing that. You think, I can comfortably raise $200,000. Well, then you better find a property that's going to cost $100,000 or less. If you go in and you raise to the penny what you need in soft commits, I promise it's not going to work. Let's say it this way. If you're going to try to raise $500,000 to buy a property, and soft commits, you better get at least $1 million, and I would feel more comfortable at $1.5 million. And that's overwhelming to a lot of people. Because when you finally do find that deal, after you've gotten a soft commit from them, many of them are not going to invest with you, because they're going to suddenly think they don't like you anymore. I don't know. Maybe you smell. They have found another deal. They've had a family emergency come up. They have to put somebody through college that they didn't anticipate. So there's lots of things that are going to happen between the soft commit and the day that you go, okay, you said you were interested, I found a deal, let's all roll. 50 to 70% of those people are not going to come through. That's what it's all about. If you don't raise the money before you go looking for a property, you're going to make a mistake. And again, you got to decide, how much money do you think you can raise to determine what size property you can buy.